Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us on yet another fantastic episode of the podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest in the studio with me, and I have today Annat Shittu. She's a phenomenal agricultural specialist. I'll just read out her bio for us so we get to know her. I'll just read out her bio for us so we get to know her better, and then we'll kick off the conversation. Okay. Annat Shittu is an agri-developer, an agribusiness strategist who is passionate about driving food security, food safety, and climate-smart agricultural solutions. As the founder and lead strategist of FARMATAGO, Anat is building a next-generation agro supply and processing company that is redefining how perishable produce moves from the farm to consumers through climate-smart post-harvest innovations and integrated supply chain model. Farmatogo is tackling critical challenges like reducing waste, unlocking market access, and offering agro-processing solutions that deliver convenience while empowering rural community. Over the years, Anat has led farm projects exceeding 700 acres for clients across Nigeria and diaspora, helping them design, manage, and scale profitable agro-businesses. Her expertise spans across agribusiness strategy, marketing, farm startup, project execution, and farmers training. From agribusiness development and project management to agro-processing innovation, Annette has consistently transformed ideas into impact, strengthening strengthening the agri-food system. She is particularly interested in conversations and collaborations around business development, strategy, agri consultation, farm setup, and initiative that foster sustainable strategies. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Osarugue. If I'm correct with the spelling of your name, it's so
Yes,
much of a pleasure to be on this section. I look forward to the amazing discussions.
fantastic. So my very first question to you today is, what do you think are some of like the mind shifts that are required for, let's say, young people to see agriculture just beyond farming, but as a thriving business opportunity?
So this question is actually a very important question because we still live in a generation whereby a lot of people are still unable to have a mind shift about what agriculture is solely all about. We are still
Yeah.
it's so surprising that you still realize that some people are still like, really? Oh wow, so you can make this from the agricultural sector. And I'm like, I have to start explaining that, oh yeah, this is possible. This is actually really possible, right? And lo and behold, from my own story, I've been able to break the stereotypes around how agriculture can be a very profitable, venture, can be a very thriving sector, right? So we all need to start from seeing agriculture as not just, I know this has been said in many times, don't see agriculture as just a cultural process, see it more as a business. But I think we still need to be able to emphasize more on that. You need to see it from an angle of, I want to thrive in it than I want to practice it,
Mm,
right? Oh, people think, oh, I want to actually practice agriculture, and I'm saying, oh yes, there's a difference between you saying you want to practice agriculture and you want to thrive with agriculture. You want to use agriculture as a source of income, and you saying you want to practice agriculture. If you practice agriculture, it's just like you're practicing how to blow a balloon. You might necessarily not become a balloon company, right? So it is just very important that what you say at the onset of whatever venture you want to start is literally what will follow you as you are growing in it. When some people, I've had issues whereby a client practically wanted to practice agriculture, spent over 20 million on a project, and was like, oh, I was just playing around with the money, and then it now got to a point whereby it was more demanding, and you realize that, oh, that you're practicing is going beyond that. But if the person actually started with the mindset of, I really want to try with this right from the onset, you would have seen opportunities that will become a money, um, a money or profitable thriving sector for you. Mm-hmm.
fantastic, fantastic. I like the fact that you alluded to the fact that there's so many people that still see agriculture as just like a practice where it's just, subsistence as against, commercial and having to make it profitable for them. And I think that that's like one of the things that I try to address with my book. I just recently launched yesterday, Agriculture Beyond Farming, A Pathway to Economic Prosperity. So it's just also so good to
Mm-hmm.
hear you echo that as well. So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. So for a person that is trying to start out, like you said, the intention that they have in mind when they want to start out in some ways influences the opportunity they are able to see, the opportunities they are able to take advantage in the course of that
Absolutely.
business
Yeah.
journey. So when starting out, how can someone sort of identify the right kinds of farm projects, whether it's like crop production, livestock production, or even processing ventures that sort of matches their resources and market demands?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question because I like talking about it. I like talking about prioritization. I like talking about selection because it's one of those things that are really hard, especially for youths. Maybe for somebody who
Mm,
is much more exposed, might feel like, oh, let me just take from this angle because I have more opportunities around me. But for a youth that has limited opportunity, limited connection, you are still stuck between, I don't know what to do because I don't know what will give me that better and thriving opportunity. So I
true.
see it more of, my own only opinion and from my own point of view every time is for you to start something that your community can benefit from, because that would even make your story stronger. Those people are the one that will be your first customers. They'll be the first person you are impacting. So whether, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, someone who started in Osho State in a local community in Osho State, if you start within that community, you're going to be able to see who you buy from, who you sell to, who you can tap into their existing knowledge. And before you know it, the opportunities and the gaps you've seen there, you realize it is existing in every other place. So then you can replicate your system from that community to other community. It's a very, very interesting thing because this is a model I have used personally, right? And I've realized
Mm-hmm.
that it keeps working. If I want to start another thing, another solution in what I've been building so far at FARMATAGO, I just look at how can we replicate this within our community, within people we know, within the 2 states we currently serve, before we now say we want to replicate it in like 2 or 3 more locations. And that is the only way we can reduce our losses and still be able to make
Mm.
so much. It's very important.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing really good insights on that. From your own experience, what would you say are some of like the first critical steps that you would recommend from, sort of transforming a small piece of land into like a sustainable business, like a small farming enterprise into like a sustainable business? What are some of the critical steps that you'd recommend?
So the one that topped the list is to make research. Who had the
Mm,
people that are the proximity, the most people, the most what's the best English? The proximal customers around you, the
mm,
proximal challenges around you. You know, what are the first challenges that are around you? I had a very, very chaotic experience this year. I won't call it chaotic because experience is an experience. However, I would say that my own first thing whenever I have a project, whenever I want to talk to a client or somebody who wants an advisory session is I need to first know the challenges you don't know in that area. So I go there, do my personal
mm,
research. Unfortunately, I realized that there's a monkey they call Aya in Yoruba. Is a wild, they call it wild monkey that actually attacks. So apparently this is prominent in that area. And then after we made our researches, we already know what and what could affect, the plants in that area. Unfortunately,
mhm,
that was not mentioned. And I kept
mm,
asking everybody, nobody even mentioned it. So unfortunately for us, this is where end up like making the old project went down, made all our
mm,
efforts go down the drain. Unfortunately, circumstances will always be in the agricultural sector, but it's important that the first on the list is to make your research and very ask the history of the land. Who are the people that are closer to you? If you're unable to sell to people maybe outside or a spot where you're currently growing, who
yeah.
will you sell to? Who are the proximal people? You need to know that. So you have like a plan B. So first on the list, make your research. Second on the list, have a plan B. Those two comes first before you now
Mm,
decide to say, okay, what do I want to make for it? Do I want to process? Do I want to sell? Because if you don't know those two, whether you plant or you don't plant, whether you process or you don't process, it will still not amount to anything.
mm. Thank you, thank
Hmm.
you. Thank you for just sharing with us that at starting, we always have to have the end in mind and then work through from that end to
Yeah.
to the start point. Thank you so much. Um, Over the years, you have managed over 700 acres. Yeah. And from doing that, I believe that there are vital lessons that you've learned along the way in just managing that project, that farm project, right? What are some of the
Yeah.
lessons smallholder farmers can learn, or even new investors can learn and apply to their small scale agricultural project to ensure that it succeeds? And this, are you there? Can you hear us? So, guys, I'm not sure if it's the network. I'm not sure if she can hear us, but just bear with us. She should be definitely back. I guess it's her network. But I like how she talked about the fact that before you even begin any enterprise, you definitely always have to have like the end in mind and then work from that end point and then start out from there towards your desired outcome. And also, I also like the fact that she highlighted that it's very important to do your research. You know, just all coming in from the summit, I think that that was like one very salient point that every single speaker or panelist during the summit spoke about, that the starting point is knowledge. The starting point is knowledge. And I like how she's also sort of emphasizing it. So once you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, I think that's something you want to sort of take much more seriously. So the part of knowledge acquisition or even doing your research as when it comes to agricultural projects cannot be overemphasized. And I like how she talked about the fact that there's still a lot that has to be done in terms of just sort of reorienting people and creating that mindset shift around agriculture, helping them see that agriculture is just way beyond farming, it's just way beyond subsistence level, it's just way beyond minimal projects, that agriculture can be done on a very commercial scale with proper research, proper understanding, working with the right team and the right people in place. You could definitely thrive within the space and within the sector. Whilst we wait for her to sort of rejoin us back in the studio, please be patient with us. I believe that she would definitely log back into the studio with us. So if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, please do so. Do subscribe, and also if you're yet to grab your copy of the book Agriculture Beyond Farming, I'm going to place the description of that. I'm going to press the description of the link to get the book within this, so you could definitely go get the book and get hands-on knowledge, practical knowledge. Okay, welcome back.
Um.
Welcome. Welcome back.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please, can you go back on what we were discussing earlier?
Oh, definitely, I can do that. So, my question to you was: you've successfully managed over 700 acres over the course of a period. And with that kind of project, there are definitely challenges that you overcame, you have to work
Mm-hmm.
through, and then, gain some insight in that process. So, my question to you is: what are some of the lessons that you learned in that process that smallholder farmers or even investors can sort of apply to their work to scale what they're doing to ensure that they succeed?
Okay. For over the past years, I've been managing and doing advisories for clients in several places, and over the past years of engaging smallholder farmers, my major advice every time is the fact that my major advice every time is the fact that it is important that smallholder farmers do not see themselves as small people, that they can also make
Mm,
decisions, they can also be a major player, and they can also voice their own thoughts. We find out that because we are saying smallholder farmers, a lot of smallholder farmers now think that their voice does not count. And at the end of the day, the issues that killed, I won't want to use killed because I want to say something that affected their growth is not what they discuss out, and they end up affecting another smallholder farmer that wants to venture into the agricultural sector. So it's important that for every challenges every smallholder face, it is important that it's being voiced out. And that's why this platform is also a great platform, because when you engage more people, you realize that people will share their opinion on the challenge. Just like I shared an experience I just heard about why it is
yeah.
important for you to make those, it is important that there are much more platforms that allow smallholder farmers' voices to be heard. A lot of times you see a lot
Mm,
of policymakers just doing the one talking, and they're not the one on the field. And
mm,
as the only way we can push this forward is to still make sure that those people on the field seeing everyday day-to-day activity are the ones that their own opinion counts in most, right? And
mm,
for me, any smallholder that wants to thrive, that wants to build forward, must not be silent with his own battles, because believe me, there is always unforeseen circumstances. But we can only go forward if we all voice our challenges, and then we bring ourselves together into a clusters, and then we bring talk about it, and then solution will always come, right? But even government likes supporting clusters, and that's why you see that not keeps growing, because they're in clusters, they're in organization.
mm.
So on a larger note, a small farmer must not isolate him or herself.
Yes.
Very, very important. Very
Thank you so
important.
much for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just highlighting the power of synergy through
Yeah,
knowledge sharing and just sharing knowledge,
yeah,
because one challenge that a person may have gone through, another person might be in that challenge, and they can leverage the insights of that person. Just the same way anybody listening to this can also leverage on the insight that you're sharing on this session. So thank you so much for
absolutely.
sharing that with us. So from your own perspective, how would you say, how can agripreneurs sort of leverage on supply chain models and partnership to reduce losses and even boost market access?
All right. That's another interesting question for me, because that's like one of the things I'm very, very good at. I've been working in the supply chain industry for quite a while. Many people
Yeah,
think when you talk supply chain, you're talking about the logistic. I'm like, no, whatever
yeah,
you do that makes you automatically reach consumers, makes you be
mm,
a part of the supply chain, right? And so and supply chain right now is always a very, very I won't call it sensitive discussion. I would just call it a very intelligent discussion, because it takes a lot of mind to battle all the challenges that happens along the supply chain. So
mm,
it is very important that there is always mitigations for every challenges. Mitigation that
mm,
comes when it comes to processing, when it comes to
okay,
logistic, when it comes to um the processing distribution. For us at FARMATAGO, we have a mitigation across every aspect of the supply chain. We already know that if something happened with logistic, who and who, how do we transport it? So for instance, for someone playing in the rice value chain, it's important to understand that, okay, what is the best storage material for me? If I can't afford this storage material, what other storage material is available for the person in and it's very interesting, because before we can minimize loss and preserve it in the agri sector, everybody needs to understand at the least what exactly works for my own produce. You can't use what you use beans to store. The bag you use beans to store, to use it to store the same thing as watermelon. They are two
mm,
different things, and that is why
yes,
it's a very long and very interesting sector of agriculture. You can't expect that how you would store cucumber is how you will store grains. In fact, there are some grains that the way you store it is not even the same thing. There's some ways you handle carrots that you cannot handle your bell peppers like that.
Yeah.
You did say that carrots not worth bell pepper needs. It's a very, very interesting sector. So it is very important that for anybody that wants to minimize loss and still be able to reach their customers, because even processor people that do full-time processing, we do processing, do semi-processing and full processing. However, yes, we still have people in the sector that do much more processing, like high level processing, and realize
Mm.
that what makes them thrive is that they already know the challenges and the opportunities their processing value chain have. It is
Yeah.
interesting that you now realize that some people that are processing rice, they will sell the rice itself, sell the rice all, sell the water that comes from it, sell all the wastes that comes from just
Yeah.
processing rice. And it is
Yeah.
by understanding that I realized, okay, yes, agri is actually a very thriving sector. For instance,
Mm.
cassava, right? It has advanced to the point that if you use the peel, you will sell it. If you
Yeah.
process the cassava by itself, you will sell it. It will process it into what's this thing called? I'm trying to
Ethanol,
remember this.
cascade starch.
It is just a lot. It is just a very large opportunity. So for everybody that wants to thrive, minimize, it is important that even if it's just one crop you want to focus on, you realize that there's a lot, and that's why it is interesting, because imagine you want to focus on just potatoes. What else can you not bring out from it? Potato flour. In fact, some people don't joke with soursop leaf. We have clients that will ask us, they want soursop leaf, not even the fruits. They want the powdered
Mm-hmm.
soursop leaf. It's such an interesting sector, because you realize that even from just one crop, you can make six options that consumers want. And I used to say it over and over again. Market access is not saying you want to reach out to customers, or market access for farmers is not saying you want to reach out to customers on their behalf. Market access for farmers is creating opportunities that allows more consumers to buy and allows more farmers to produce more, right? What an interesting sector it is. How would answer
Yeah.
your question?
Yes, it did. I think that the things you shared, talking about just dialing down on the value chain, I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm,
things that one of the panelists on the session on the summit yesterday talked about. Emmanuel
mm-hmm,
Ojebo. He was talking about. It was from the conversation we had on the summit yesterday that he talked about, cassava. Because someone had asked, oh, someone that wants to invest, what should they look into? It was like, oh, in 2026, palm oil and cassava. Cassava now,
yeah,
everything is so useful, whether for
mm-hmm,
ethanol, whether the starch for pharmaceuticals, just there's just so much within that particular crop in itself. And one of the
yeah,
things as well that was also highlighted was just this whole thing about circular economy. So end to end utilization of a particular resource.
mm-hmm,
End to end. They're not just like
yeah,
just using that one thing and then disposing. That thing you're about to
yeah,
dispose, there's still something within it that can be done only if you are aware of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Thank you for highlighting that as
It's
well.
and it
Uh,
is applicable to all, it's applicable to all agricultural produce. Not one is not bigger than the other. It's just how much you know about it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think you're just echoing a majority of the things that were just talked about on the summit yesterday. And he had mentioned that, because he's into agro exportation, and it was, and some
Okay.
we had asked a question about, people saying, "Oh, you needed to be a key player for exportation." And I was like, "No, you don't need to be a key player. You just need to understand financing model. You just need to
Yeah.
understand financing model. Financing model is not always cash." It's not always cash,
Yeah.
but there are different levels of which you can finance your agricultural project. And I was like, wow, knowledge is power, like they say. But thank you so
Sure.
much for sharing that with us. So my very next question to you at this time is, what would you say are, from your experience and also observations, are like the common mistakes that first timer, people that want to go into agro business they make, and how can these common pitfalls be avoided?
Hmm.
Or common
So first
mistakes?
timers often make the mistake of planning too big. First
Hmm.
timers often make the mistake a lot. They plan too big
Please
and
break it down. Hmm.
they have high expectations. And to be sincere, no matter how much they've seen beautiful things online, oh, agriculture is more sexy now. Agriculture is still agriculture. The the grassroots playing is still grassroots playing. This, no matter how you want to package it. So the expectations they have. When they don't get it, before you know it, in 3 months they're out of the sector. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, okay. So don't play too big, don't have too much expectation, have growth mindset, and then your ride will be smooth with a little bit of bumps, of course, but then it's going to be a gradual thing. Even if it is fast as it might be, it's going to be a gradual thing. So when many first timers play too big, they realize that they have a very high loss. Imagine I've been in situations whereby the clients will literally tell me the money is not the problem. Money is not the problem. And I'm like, I'm not saying money is the problem. Money, I'm not saying you don't have the money. I am saying that is not the first thing on the list. That is not the first thing.
Yeah.
You bring your down, you using your money, it's not the first thing on the list. The expectations you have when you put that money down is going to be very high too. So when it fails you, you're already like, oh no, this thing they told me it was bad and now it is actually and now it is
Mm.
actually bad. So it's important that a lot of us timers need to understand that even if I want to play big, let me have like a plan schedule. Let me have 3 months, let me have 5 months, 6 months. Let me foresee, and just the way a normal business owner in, and I keep saying this thing, just the way we see people in other sectors planning their business, having business plan, knowing what they want to achieve in milestones. It's the same way people need to see agriculture, especially when you want to thrive in agriculture, not just practice agriculture. you know it is important that people build their journey in milestones and not
Mm.
instantaneously. I want it immediately. I want the results, everything. I want to be able to make an arrow high of 6 million in just in just 3 months. I want to start with 1 million and make 10 million. The mindset is still there. People think, oh, this person is doing big. Definitely, the person is doing big because he had so much money and then he made it all at once.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow. So there's still a mindset work that needs to be tweaked, and
Mm-hmm.
the first thing is the growth mindset. And I also like
Yeah.
how you also emphasize the fact that there's a patience capital required. As much as you have the actual capital in financing, there's also like the
Yeah.
patient capital required.
Yeah.
I think it's Farmer Samson Ogbole that says in agriculture we grow, we don't blow. We grow, we don't
Exactly.
blow. So it's like
Let's not
processes.
blow it.
No,
Blow
it's
it.
just we grow through it. But I also like the
Yeah.
fact that you emphasize that you can dream big, but start small and then grow big, right? Dream big,
Yeah.
start small, and then sort of grow big. Thank you so much for sharing those points with us. So my next question now is, I know that a key part of the work that you do at FARMATAGO is processing, right? So what would
Mm-hmm.
you say, how would you say processing is sort of transforming the way consumers access food? And what role does convenience play in sort of shaping how, I would say, in shaping like the future of our diets in Nigeria or in Africa?
Mm. That's an important question because one of the things I learned when I was entering the sector is what raw processing meant, but I feel like it's not being emphasized enough because a
Okay.
lot of people in processing still feels like I'm just doing something small, but it's actually a
Mm,
very big deal. You know, it is a very big deal. Processing could enter or could translate into many things. That's the word.
mm,
It could translate into biofortification. It could translate into
yes.
nutrient improvements. It could translate into conveniency. It could
Mm-hmm,
translate into more profit. It could translate
mm-hmm,
into so much more. And that is why, yes, processing is amazing, but we have to be able to, the processing wisdom processing, be able to tell yourself, what am I doing it for? Is it for gratification and nutrient focus? Is it so that my consumers will be are more convenient to consume whatever I've been selling over the time? We have
mm,
understand that, and that is why we have several products tailored to this function, this to what it translates to. There are some from our product that focuses on biofortification and nutrition focus, and there are some
mm,
that is totally ensuring that the nutrient is received and then it's convenient for them to eat. So if anybody wants to enter processing, see what is the reason to enter processing. or even why should I continue building my processing line? Because processing is not easy. You start thinking of the machines you want to buy, the things you
Yeah.
want to install, the light it takes, and all of those things. But if you have a reason for it, you realize that the growth will simultaneously happen. And luckily, there are a lot of funds in the agri sector that aids people that want to do processing, people in about fortification, nutrient focused products. But you
Yeah.
see a lot of people doing processing. They don't even know that they're actually in something that they could get so much opportunity and support for. So it still has to be said loudly out there that okay, if you are doing processing for agricultural produce, especially this or that, that means you are doing by fortification. If you are doing it in maybe in cassava, you are doing what there are different places, right? I feel like there should even be a table that makes that translation vividly, right? But like I said, we still need to work as a cluster and bring our heads together to develop this information guidance to many young agripreneurs.
Hmm. I think that what you just said is spot on. I think it was also in alignment with what Joseph Fashola had mentioned during the
Mm-hmm.
summit yesterday. He was asked the question, just projecting into three to 5 years, what are like the major sub sectors within the agriculture sector that should be looked at? And it's like, oh, technology is okay, but there's also a lot to be done around financing as well as information, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
so much that's ongoing, and because people are not aware about it, they can't even access, the benefit that would have
Mm-hmm.
come to them if they were aware of those information. So thank you for sort of highlighting that. Still on the subject of processing, in what ways can agro processing create opportunities for rural communities, particularly for smallholder farmers, while also reducing post harvest losses?
This has been highlighted before. I think I said it majorly in some of the questions. And the major way smallholder farmers can benefit from processing is cluster formation and then group processing. There is a particular community in Ilora in Oyo State. The place is, they call it the Gari village or something. They all have a cluster where they all process at the same time and use. It hosts
Where is that?
almost on in Ilora in Oyo State.
Illinois is what state? What state?
Oyo State.
That's Ibadan. Okay, okay. All
Yes,
right.
not Ibadan. It is Oyo State, Oyo itself. It is not Ibadan. Ilora is another town in Oyo.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
it was over 200 cassava farmers. It's so beautiful. What a beautiful sight, right? So it is something that for them, agro-processing, innovation, anything is what they will keep benefiting from. And the more we have those kind of clusters in other communities across Nigeria, the more they will benefit from the agro-processing support. Agro-processing support will only come from organized communities, organized players, and
Hmm.
even organized young agripreneurs, right? You're able to align yourself with, oh, how can I join this community? How can I join that community? And it's something I also want to like develop because it's important that we have an organized system with people, with process, and with action, right? And that is how
Hmm.
agri can actually thrive very well.
Hmm. So please help me a bit with clarification. Would you consider, they're usually cooperatives. Would you consider cooperatives and clusters as the same, or they sort of have similar functions, but they're not quite the same?
So cooperative, they have a very a bit difference with how they do the clusters formation. From my own experience, right, I've realized that many people that want to do I want to join a cooperative, they see it from a benefit look. They
Standpoint.
see it as
Hmm.
how will I be able to get benefit from joining a cooperative. But cluster is more of us saying that how am I going to be able to
Wow. So I'm thinking she's also having a bit of network glitch. But guys, I like how this conversation has just been going. And it's so beautiful to hear that most of the things that she's sharing with us today are majority of the things that we heard at the summit previously. And it just boils down to say that there's so much opportunity within the space. There's still a need for a lot of reorientation. There's still a need for a lot of people having much more access to information so that they can make better choices and better decisions. And then we invariably have different outcomes as well. But just having her here talk about to the need for cooperation, the need for alliances, the need for having clusters. I like how she's just giving the differentiating factor between cooperatives and clusters. It's just been an amazing conversation. Just been an amazing conversation. I typically like how she talked about processing from different aspects. So way beyond just turning raw materials into finished products, there's also an element of whether biofortification within it. Biofortification is more about how do we make a particular product more nutritious. For instance, it's like there's some variants of Gary that has a lot of much more like vitamin C elements to it. So that's also like biofortification. How do we see that that particular produce has more nutrients in it, And I like how she talked about there's a lot of access to funds for people that are interested in that aspect of um, biofortification, that aspect of processing. So processing is just way beyond just increasing the shelf life of a produce. Much more than that, it's also about making it much more nutritious, making it much more. You're concerned about the the health benefit of of the produce. You're concerned about the longevity of the produce as well. She's back. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. I had another short gap.
Okay. So you should I read out the question or you can remember the question?
No, please go back on the question.
Okay, that's fair enough. So the question was around processing, and the
Mm-hmm.
question was also around the subject of um, from your own experience, how would you say? Okay, I think you've answered that. You were giving me a bit of clarity on cluster and cooperatives, and you were talking
Okay.
about the fact that cooperative people go into it with just a the benefit that they are going to gain by being part of the cooperative, and you were trying to also highlight to me what differentiates it from a cluster. So I think that's where we
Yeah.
were.
In a nutshell, right? Cooperative is more like a benefit platform where people are able to like we can also reach out to cooperative to see how we can support people in a cooperative. Clusters on the other end is saying that, oh, let's do things together. We can decide to say, okay, let's bring a cluster of farmers together today. It might necessarily not be a cooperative, but it might just be that whenever it comes to, oh, cassava farmers solely, clusters of cassava farmers solely, let's come together, let's work on something together, right? But if it's registered, they all know that, oh, we're in the same cluster of cassava farmers. However, cooperatives can be more than just cassava farmer, because a targeted solution most times likes to go to clusters of farmers in the same value chain. Let's say clusters of
Mm,
farmers, rice value chain, clusters of farmers in the horticultural value chain. In fact, sometimes you have to create cluster for farmers for a particular project, right?
mm,
So we could say that cooperative is more of an and we will even call it organization, right? It's more of just like a body that coordinates activities. Inside the cooperative, you might even have clusters.
mm.
That's what I believe.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So we have just two more questions for you, and that will be the end of the session today. So the next question is around what would you say are some of like the practical steps that a person like a smallholder farmer in agro processing can take that can sort of even make a big difference for them in terms of like their contribution to food security and even like market access.
Mm. Please, can you go back on that question? I'm missing the first thing you mentioned.
Okay. So what are some of like the practical steps that an aspiring agropreneur who's interested
Mm-hmm.
in processing can take that they can take to make a big difference with regards to like food security within the continent and as well as even market access?
Okay. So this basically is saying that as an agripreneur who wants to start or is looking to start, what
Mm-hmm.
exactly are steps they can take to make sure they are in this line of agricultural sector. I think the first thing they have to do is to say what crop do they want to talk about. We spoke earlier about how a circular economy of processing looks like, right? So
Yeah.
when the person tell themselves that, okay, I think I prefer to work with rice, I think I prefer to work with tomato, they're able to tap into all the opportunities that is around it, and then along that line they can decide to now expand from tomato to potatoes to cassava, right? But imagine you don't even understand the challenges how to navigate processing tomatoes, and you already like start to add like almost six crops together, and you realize that those six crops you added at the same time, and that is why it is important, like I mentioned earlier, to start within your community, because there are some communities that they don't prefer the processed rice, they prefer the processed tomato, right? So the first one, know what crop you want to focus on. The second most important part is start within your community. Start that processing activity with your community. If it's Gary pack that the processor wants to do, take that Gary pack, take it within your community, sell it, see that it's doing well, see that okay, these are my loopholes before you now hand another thing. So those
Mm.
two first two practicing step I would always recommend even when I'm sleeping, because that is what will guide you to know what to push forward, right? I say it every time that you don't know what you really need and what you don't need until you start, right?
Mm.
So if you're an aspiring agripreneur, you need to be able to tell yourself exactly that, let me take these two actions that is easier to make, and then I will know where to forge ahead from that.
Mm. So my final question for you today is, and this question is hinged on the fact that one of the main goals of this podcast is to help young Africans sort of see like the possibility within agriculture and so that they can decide to want to be key players within the space, right? So for that
Mm-hmm.
very young person that is sitting on the fence and they're a bit indecisive if agriculture is for them or if they should do it or they shouldn't do it, what would you say to that person? What's like your advice to that person?
Okay. Well, my advice is simple. My advice is that have a good mindset. I've said it like three times already today, and this is important because even in any other sector, it's the mindset you have towards the activity that makes you grow and thrive in it. So have a good
Mm,
mindset. So even when you're seeing failures in your journey, change your mindset and realize, okay, maybe it is not the sector, because a lot of people are still polluted by agric is hard, agric is not easy. That is
mm,
why that and has to change. So forget about all the things we've heard, all the we all heard it, right? I heard it, a lot of people heard it, a lot of young people heard it. We still even have families that say, why would he be in the sector, right? But luckily, right, the result is showing, and you can only show when you are much more convinced that what you're doing will work out. So, and most importantly, allow yourself to have options to thrive, right? If you are
mm,
in this value chain of agriculture,
mm. So I think she's also having another network glitch, but I like how she's giving the her closing remark, which is allow yourself the opportunity to thrive. And I like how she talked about the whole mindset thing, and that's like the heart of my speech yesterday during the conference, the AIAN virtual summit yesterday. Just helping people know that there's a need for reorientation. There's a need for how they see, how they perceive the sector. Just have to think of it differently. If you think of it from a standpoint of inefficiency, inadequacy, that's definitely what you're going to be seeing all the time because that's like where your mind is at on it. But if you think about it from a different standpoint of growth, of progress, of that, okay, I'm willing to invest the time and energy and resources needed into this and then seeing that it works, definitely. Would there be challenges? Of course. I don't think that there's any venture that a person would embark on their lifetime and not sort of experience challenges. However, I think what separates the greats from others is that they are willing to work through the challenges. They are willing to sort of forge ahead in spite of it. They're willing to sort of iterate where necessary, pick out what's working and pick out what's working, amplify on that, double double down on what's working, and let go of what's not working, and just figuring out, okay, what else can be done to sort of make a difference within it. It's my honest thoughts and opinion that agriculture in itself, it's a viable means to economic empowerment. As you start out, it's just like the way when you're observing seed grow, you start out with it, you keep nurturing it, and you see it bloom. The same thing for agriculture. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Keep having network issues, but thank God the session has been an amazing one for me personally.
Fantastic. So
So I think
you were just wrapping up
remember,
with your
yeah,
agriculture for the young people.
yeah, I remember where I left because I might still have to round this up
Yeah.
now. So in just the summary, I just basically believe that a mindset shift towards what we think about agriculture allows us to thrive better, right? That is that you're able to communicate your goals, in a precise manner, and that is how you're able to plan with milestones.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for the insightful way you answered the question. Thank you for just sharing so much with us today. And the work that you do with your team, it's really, really amazing. I like how you're able to
Thank
just
you.
simplify what seemingly looks as difficult. When you talked about
Mm-hmm.
processing today, it was just looking easy, talking about biofortification, preservations and things like that. You were making it look really easy and very relatable. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for also just advising the young people to let them know that there's so much within the sector. Don't be discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
Start out,
Mm-hmm.
dream big, start out small, but have in mind to grow with the process. That there's definitely a process, just the same way there are processes in every other venture. Thank
Yeah,
you so much. And it's
it's
been
my
a delight.
pleasure, and thank you for having me on this show.
You're welcome.
All
Do have
right,
a lovely evening.
you
Bye.
too. Bye.
So, guys, it's been a lovely and amazing session and time out with Annette. And please do take adhere to the admonitions that she had given, understanding that you could definitely grow and bloom within the sector, but you have to be willing to also invest the patient's capital. Even as much as you invest the monetary and financial capital, you need to invest the patient's capital. And so, um, I believe that this conversation, in so many ways, sort of ties down back to a lot of interactions and the conversation that was had with during the summit yesterday, and also a couple of the conversations I also talked about when I was talking about the book. So if you're yet to get the book, like I mentioned, um, you will definitely get to see the link within the description of this video. Feel free to click on the link and get yourself a copy of Agriculture Beyond Farming, a pathway to economic prosperity. And if you stay till this particular time of this episode, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. The reason for subscribing is because so that whenever we come up with any episode, you will be among the first people to be notified about the episode. Thank you guys for sticking with us from the beginning of this episode to this point. Until next episode, stay blessed. Have a lovely weekend. And bye for now. Oh, yeah. I think, okay. I wanted to just also, okay, I'll let it be. Bye for now.